You are Locked On Mets Postcast. Part of Locked On Sports New York on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Well, that was not enjoyable. The New York Mets fall in Game 1 of the NLCS by a score of 9-0, and it was bad from the word go for the New York Mets. Welcome into this Locked On Mets postcast. I am your host, Chris Schubert, and we are going to break down as the New York Mets drop Game 1 of this 7-game series with the Los Angeles Dodgers, find themselves in an 0-1 hole, and find themselves looking to get themselves up off the mat once again after losing 9-0 tonight. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. That sucked. That was not an enjoyable watch. I think for the first time this postseason, it felt like the Mets were never in the game. Even in the other 7 games that the Mets had played, they had lost 2 of them, lost one of the Brewers, lost one of the Phillies. They were in those games, and there were comebacks in those games, and the offense showed signs of being able to make those games competitive and showing signs of them being able to win those games. And the New York Mets just didn't have it tonight. They didn't have it from the word go. And you can see, if you're watching us here on the YouTube side of things live, I got myself a brand new OMG t-shirt. I broke it out here for this series. Shout out to my lovely fiance who hooked me up with this, an extremely supportive fiance, allowing me to watch all these games and do these postcasts and wanted to support me, got me this t-shirt, and was sitting here in this t-shirt, and I was saying, oh my God, as to what we were watching on the television screen tonight, because it was not a good time for the Mets in Game 1 of this series. And it started from the word go with the guy who took the mound for the New York Mets, that being Kodai Senga, lasting only 4 outs, was only able to find 4 outs in this game, an inning and a third through, I think the final tally was 30 pitches in this game, and only had 10 strikes, 2 hits, 3 earned runs, 4 walks, and the command was just not there. And you could see it plainly in those first couple of innings. And shout out to Eno Saris of The Athletic, who did a great story after Kodai Senga made his first start in Philadelphia when he opened and pitched those 2 innings and only allowed the 1 earned run. But he looked at the pitch mechanics. He looked at the speed of the fastball. He looked at the movement on some of the other stuff and said, not sure if Kodai Senga is 100%. Not sure if he is somebody that the New York Mets are going to be able to count on, because it still feels like he is rehabbing. It still feels like he has a ways to go before he is the guy that was a Rookie of the Year candidate, that looked as good as he did in that start against the Braves earlier in the season. And you could tell from the word go that what Eno kind of talked about in his story came to fruition. Did not have that extra zip, that extra life on the fastball, was sitting at 94 pretty regularly. And if Kodai Senga is going to have these really good outings for this team, where he's going 6-7 innings and he's going deep into ball games, and talking about him potentially making a pivotal Game 5 start. If this team makes it to the World Series, him being able to go deep into these games, he's got to have extra life on that fastball. That thing cannot sit 94. It has to sit, 95, 96. It touched 97 in that start against the Phillies. He'd probably like to be there pretty regularly in the early going of the game. Had no feel for the cutter, had no feel for the ghost fork, and just didn't have command. And against this team, against this lineup, you cannot give them extra base runners. You cannot walk guys. You cannot give them opportunities with ducks on the pond, with runners in scoring position, because they are going to take advantage of it. And they did. And they did in that first inning. And before the Mets could even think, it was 2-0. And with the way the offense took some at-bats tonight, that was all she wrote at that point. But Kodai Senga didn't have it. Again, only 10 strikes, just did not have the command. And I think the question that's going to be on everybody's mind, and it's not one that I think we're in a place to answer here on this Locked On Mets postcast. We have to react to what we just saw in tonight's game and the 9-0 loss that the Mets suffered. But the question that is going to be asked is, the idea of starting Senga in Game 1 tonight was, after he made that first start and only had about 30 pitches in the tank, he was going to be able to go probably about 60 pitches tonight if everything went according to plan. And the idea behind that, it was going to push him to be able to give you a quality start type outing in a potential, in a Game 5 scenario. If you wanted to go back to him, you probably were going to have him available for 75 pitches, maybe even push it to 80 pitches. And now we're talking about a normal start and a normal situation for the New York Mets, where they don't have to have David Peterson or McNeil immediately ready to go to piggyback off of Kodai Senga. That was the idea behind starting him in Game 1, is to continue to ramp him up. And you're kind of rolling the dice of, trying to bring a guy along who is the ace of this staff and you feel gives you a good chance to win, but also you got to play the game in front of you. You have to try to win tonight's game. You can't be thinking about game 5, and you have to try to put your best foot forward. And so we'll save that for another time, but that was clearly the intent for the Mets deciding to go with Kodai Senga in a potential in game 1 tonight to set him up for a potential longer start in game 5, instead of, let's say, going with Sean Manaea here in game 1, trying to get the team off to a good start, maybe win one early. Because again, the motto is you got to win one on the road here of these first 2. So you just put a lot of pressure on yourself for tomorrow. And then you maybe could have gone to Kodai Senga in game 2 or saved them for a game at home, depending on how you wanted to do it. So that was the way Carlos Mendoza chose to go about it and found themselves in this mess. And I think we've been extremely praiseful of Carlos Mendoza here on these postcasts when he's pushed the right button, when he's made the right decisions. And I was not particularly happy with some of the decisions that he made in tonight's contest. I didn't necessarily love the way he handled Kodai Senga. I don't think it would take a veteran manager or a veteran MLB coach or somebody who's been around the game 10, 15, 25 years to see that Kodai Senga didn't have it in the first inning. And to have him go back out there for the second inning of this game when he clearly didn't have his best stuff, I just thought was setting him up for failure. And I think just opening the door for what ultimately happened in the second inning, Ohtani with a hit to tack on an additional run and make it 3-0, and then force Carlos Mendoza to go to David Peterson. And the reason why I don't like it, and you see it there on the sidebar about stretching Peterson out. So we'll touch on David Peterson coming into this game after he went to Reed Garrett. If you were going to go to David Peterson at some point in this game, and Carlos Mendoza, I thought the in-game interview that he gave was extremely telling, because when he made the decision after Garrett got out of the inning in the second and then pitched the third, and then he went to David Peterson to get the last out and then let Peterson go 2 1/3. He talked about wanting to give the offense a chance, that he wanted to give his guys an opportunity. And the way that I took that, and I texted a buddy while I was watching the game, and I said, if he's going to burn Peterson here, and he's going to burn Peterson in the sense of using him for multiple innings, not just a big-time lefty matchup late in the game, which is kind of what his role is at this point of the season and what his place is on the roster, and as a piggyback to Kodai Senga. If you're going to use him and burn him for multiple innings, it's because he thinks that if he keeps the game here at 3-0, the bats will wake up. They can force the Dodgers to have to go to their bullpen. And then because he burned Peterson here and now probably doesn't have him tomorrow, he clearly doesn't have him for tomorrow now. But in the moment, I'm thinking he doesn't have David Peterson for tomorrow because he's going to burn him here. And if they can get this game and they can steal this one, boy, is that going to be a huge motivational boost to the team. It's clearly what he was thinking, the way he talked about how he wanted to give the offense a shot here, which meant I'm going to let Peterson try to keep this game close at 3-0, and hopefully the bats can make this move pay off. I didn't like it, because if that was the idea, if you were going to ultimately burn Peterson, then he should have started the second inning. Then you should have saved Reed Garrett, and you should have tried to kept this game at 2-0 and then given yourself the opportunity to a bloop and a blast, and you're right back in it. But instead, you tried to get cute. You tried to maybe see if Senga would settle down a little bit, and you could probably try to steal 3 more outs, because I don't think he was going beyond 2 innings at that point anyway. So you tried to maybe steal 3 more outs. It didn't necessarily get there. The out that he got in that inning was off of a bunt anyway. So the Dodgers basically gifted him a free out. And then he had to go to Reed Garrett, and then ultimately then went to David Peterson. So if you were going to burn Peterson in that capacity with the mindset of, I want to keep this lead small because I think my team's going to be able to wake up, then I think you should have gone to David Peterson right away. And in that early stretch of this game, over those first 3 innings, try to keep this game at 2-0 at that point, and then try to see if that inspires or sparks your offense a little bit. Now, it ultimately did matter with the way the bats performed tonight. But if that was the methodology, if that was the thought process in the moment, then I think the execution could have been a little better. The execution could have worked a little bit more, I think, in line with the way the game was flowing at that point, to get Peterson in at the start of the second, let him start an inning fresh, right? He brought him in the middle of an inning to face Max Muncy, but you can have him start fresh for an inning there, and then he can give you those 3 outs. And then you can see from there, you can read and react to the situation. So didn't love that from Carlos Mendoza. Not going to get on him too much. On a night where your team only has 3 hits and the first one doesn't come until the 5th inning. We'll talk about that here in a second. Not a whole lot you can do. Sometimes you push the buttons and they work. Sometimes you push the buttons and they don't. Tonight was an example of Carlos pushing the buttons and then not working, but it does kind of set up for a very interesting day tomorrow, because now in the latter stages of this game, if the Mets have a lead late, he's probably not going to have David Peterson available to face that stretch with Ohtani and Freeman the two lefties that you have to get out. It was a disappointing offensive performance from the New York Mets. Their first hit doesn't come until the fifth inning. It's 3 hits for the entire game, and we will talk about that here on the other side. Ibata, you're going to want to download the free Ibata app and start earning some cash back. I'm sure you're getting ready for the fall season, maybe the Halloween candy, maybe the decorations, maybe you're thinking about a costume, maybe you're thinking about some pumpkin spice stuff. I know it's that time of year. Ibata is the free app that lets you earn cash back every time you shop. Earn on hundreds of items from groceries to beauty supplies, even toys, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. The average Ibata user earns $256 per year. That could cover the cost of an entire shopping trip, that flight you've been eyeing, or the fancy dinner you've been craving. Other apps give you points that don't amount to much. With Ibata, you can earn cash back that you can withdraw to your bank account, PayPal, or gift cards. Simply add offers in the app, upload your receipt, and voila, the money is yours. You can save on over 2,400 brands and shop at over 1,000 retailers, including your favorite grocery stores, Lowe's, Macy's, Sephora, Best Buy, and more. It's time you join the over 50 million users who use Ibata to earn cash back every time they shop. Right now, Ibata is offering our listeners $5 for just trying Ibata by using the code LOCKEDONMLB when you register. Just go to the App Store or the Google Play Store and download the free Ibata app to start earning cash back, and use code LOCKEDONMLB. That's Ibata, IBOTA, in the Google Play or App Store, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB. Make sure you're also subscribed here to the Locked On Sports New York YouTube channel. It's going to be a busy next couple of days here on the channel. So you want to subscribe. You want to turn on that notification bell so when you are notified when we go live here, because I got you after game 2 tomorrow of the NLCS against the Dodgers. And if you are a Mets and a Jets fan, tomorrow is going to be a busy day for you. I'm also going to have you covered for the Locked On Jets postcast after the Jets take on the Bills on Monday Night Football. If you're a Giants fan, Jay Berman's got you covered on the Giants side of things. Probably going to go live here if he isn't already live on the channel as we speak, so you can flip back and forth and catch both of those postcasts so you get our instant reactions to all of these games. So again, you're going to want to subscribe. Busy day tomorrow for the Jets and the Mets, and I got you covered on both sides of things. All right, let's talk about the offense, because the no runs, obviously, a huge damper. The 3 hits, not getting your first hit until the 5th inning. It was 9 up and 9 down at one point for Jack Flaherty. It was 4 no-hit innings for Jack Flaherty. And I think the most important thing that comes out of this is not a concern about the bats. Oh, are they going to go cold? Or are they hitting a wall? I'm not worried about that. There's veterans in that room. Francisco Lindor, Brandon Nimmo, Pete Alonso, those guys are going to be fine. This is not a scenario where I'm going to, come up here and say, well, the top 4 guys of the lineup didn't have a hit. Lindor 0 for 3, Vientos 0 for 4, Nimmo 0 for 3, Pete Alonso 0 for 3. We've done that during these postseason postcasts. That's not what this was tonight. You got beat by a good team. Your starting pitcher didn't have it. You worked yourself into a problem. That's a good team that you're playing in this series. Sometimes these things happen. It took until the 8th postseason game for the New York Mets for them to have a stinker like this. They've just played every game close because of the way they've been playing baseball for the last, what feels like 3 decades. But it's just been, 2.5 weeks that a game like this just hasn't been something we've experienced recently. It happened. It is what it is. You move on. You flush it. It's like in football, when you get blown out, you just bury the tape. We don't even need to watch it. And these guys are veterans. They're going to be able to figure it out. And I expect a much better performance in tomorrow's game. But the thing you did here by not getting a hit until the 5th inning, by struggling the way you did offensively, you let Jack Flaherty go 7 innings, only allow 2 hits, strike out 6, throw 98 pitches, and you turned what was an advantage for you into, now maybe we would call it even strength. Because coming into this game, the Dodgers have made it perfectly clear. And I don't know if they're going to do it tomorrow or they're going to do it in game 3. I'm not paying attention to any of the post-game pressers from the managers, so maybe this has changed. But the Dodgers were considering a bullpen game in game 2. And if you were able to get to Jack Flaherty, not in terms of scoring runs and maybe making this game close, but if you just got to him and he only went 5 innings, or you got him out in the 4th, you then go to this bullpen that's, we all know, is going to be used for a bullpen game at some point. And so whether it's in game 2 or game 3, you allowed them to rest those guys. You allowed them to not have to use those guys ahead of the bullpen game. So if they go and they have a bullpen game tomorrow in game 2, they're going to be relatively fresh. They use 2 other arms other than Jack Flaherty to get the outs. So to me, it felt like a missed opportunity that you were not winning this game with the way that your pitching went and the way that your offense was going overall, but you didn't get to the bullpen of the Dodgers to at least force them to have to make some tough decisions either in the game tonight or in tomorrow's bullpen game or wherever they use a bullpen game. So coming into this game, it was a very overworked bullpen. They hadn't had a starter go 6 innings or more in a postseason start since 2021. That's how far back you'd have to go for the Dodgers to have a starting pitcher who went 6 or more innings before Jack Flaherty went 7 innings tonight. They have constantly asked their bullpen to get 15, 18 outs to keep their seasons alive, not just this year, but over the last couple of years. And they didn't have to do that tonight. And that's the unfortunate part for the New York Mets is they couldn't even force the Dodgers into a couple of tough decisions in terms of their bullpen usage. And that kind of evens things up going into the rest of the series. The Mets still have the starting pitching advantage, and they will have a starting pitching advantage when the Dodgers go to this bullpen game, whenever they do it, whether it's in game 2 or game 3, and you have to take advantage of that opportunity. But you missed the chance tonight to press them and force them into the same issues that we've been watching the Mets have for the last week or two. I mean, Edwin Diaz throwing 100 pitches in, 8 days? The usage of Phil Maton, figuring out how you're going to get through these high leverage situations because guys have been overused, because guys have been asked, I need you to get 3 outs here or 4 outs here, or we're playing 5 games in 4 days. And all of the stuff that has gone on for the New York Mets that has led up to tonight's game 1 performance, you could have put some of that on the Dodgers, who are already up against it because their starting pitching isn't as strong, because they've had injuries that have plagued their rotation, to where they are going to a bullpen game, and they will go to a bullpen game probably multiple times in this series. You could have leaned on that a little bit. You could have emphasized that a little bit and made that a pinch point, because that's really where you have an advantage in the series. And that's we're not able to take advantage of that tonight. So that is a disappointing part of this offense, not getting a hit until the 5th inning and only being able to muster up 3 hits. They didn't get enough traffic on the base paths to even force Dave Roberts' hand to try to get Flaherty out of there. They didn't work up the pitch count enough to get Flaherty out of there early. So they just didn't have it tonight. And it's hard to come on here and do this postcast and try to come up with another way to say it, but that's what happened tonight. It's a good baseball team over there. The Mets could very easily do that to the Dodgers tomorrow, and it could be 1-1 going back to Citi Field for game 3. It just hasn't happened up until this point in the postseason, so I think it is a little jarring. They're a good baseball team. They took advantage of the starter not having it for the New York Mets, and now the Mets have to dust themselves off like they've had the entire year and try to win one on the road tomorrow in game 2. Couple of other managerial decisions I didn't necessarily love, one in particular, that and the final thoughts here in just a second. FanDuel, download the FanDuel app. Hey, NFL fans, you can start the season with a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So when you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. This is probably a nitpick, but since we're here, since the Mets dropped this game 9-0, and they trail in the series 1-0 going into game 2 tomorrow, and it's kind of a negative vibe here on the show. And make sure you are subscribed to the Locked On Mets podcast feed. Ryan Finkelstein, he also tends to go live after these games, but he is not tonight. So appreciate him tweeting out about us doing this postcast. But I'm sure he'll have his thoughts a little bit later on this evening, or if you're catching us a little bit later, he'll have those in the morning for you, and you'll be able to listen to his big picture view, and he'll take you into game 2 before I have you on the postcast side of things after game 2 tomorrow. But we get to react, we get to discuss these things as they happen. And I thought that when this game got sideways in the 4th and it was 6-0, felt like the right opportunity to, hey, Jeff McNeil, you haven't played a baseball game in a while. I know you were down in Arizona playing in the fall league. You got, what was it, 10 at-bats or so down there in the fall league. You were able to swing the bat and ramp yourself up a little bit, but you haven't played a game. This is now a low leverage environment for us. Let's get you out. Let's get you out here. Let's put you out in the field. Let's give you a couple at bats. Now, he pinched hit and in the Jeff McNeil fashion, swung at the first pitch. I just thought there was a opportunity to get him into the game earlier than they did. They pinch hit him for Tyrone Taylor and then immediately put Harrison Bader into the game. So I don't know. I just didn't necessarily love the usage of Jeff McNeil. Thought there was an opportunity there to get him into the field, get him maybe more than one at bat over the course of this game when things went sideways there in the 4th. when it became 6-0. And so we'll see if he draws into the lineup in game 2 or if he's going to be used as this utility bench piece right now, lefty off the bench. And we'll see how the Mets choose to attack this. But it felt like if you are a little worried about giving him too much of a workload in the early part of him coming back, which is completely understandable, this was the low leverage environment to give him a little bit more, because he can't fail any worse than the team had already done tonight, right? They were already down 6-0, and they, at that point in the game, they were not touching Jack Flaherty, and it wasn't happening. So I just thought there was an opportunity there to get him into the game, and we missed that opportunity, and I don't think it's going to come back to bite the Mets, but those are the little things I'm paying attention to during this game. And the game went on mute pretty early tonight, and that's rare for me. I normally grin and bear the commentary, and Joe Davis and Schmaltz do an okay job, better than the crew in the last series. But it went on mute pretty early tonight. I just was like, you know what? I'm going to take this in just with my own internal thoughts. I don't need the broadcast feeding me anything. The bullpen usage after David Peterson, you asked Danny Young to just mop things up. I think that was good. And then Jose Butto gives you 1 2/3 innings. And I guess the idea there now is not going to have him tomorrow. So he doesn't pitch tomorrow. They have an off day on Tuesday. So he should potentially be available the moment they get back to Citi Field on Wednesday. And so now it's just going to be about turning things around tomorrow. Now, the reason why I'm not doom and gloom about this is team has bounced back before. This team has dusted themselves off before, and they've answered to everything. And this was not like a gut punch game 5 loss when the series is tied 2-2, or this isn't, up 3-2 in game 6 and you lose and it's back to LA for a game. It's not any of those scenarios. They lost the first game of the series. Happens. They needed to come out of this 2-game stretch with the Dodgers winning 1. The ideal scenario for the New York Mets was to go back to Citi Field 1-1. To me, a playoff series doesn't start until somebody wins a road game. So even if they lose tomorrow and it's 2-0, I don't think the series really has started, because if the Mets hold serve, then they're going back to LA 3-2. So you steal one here in LA, I think that's house money. I think you did what you needed to do. And so the Mets still have that opportunity. That is still in front of them tomorrow when they take on the Dodgers, and they're turning it over to their ace, Sean Manaea, to piggyback off of the great start that he had against Philly, against this Dodgers team, this Dodgers lineup that has 2 lefties at the top, and you can set the tone very early about what this team's going to be about in game 2. So a disappointing performance for the New York Mets here, but not one that I think should, make you think that they can't hang with the Dodgers. The Dodgers are a good baseball team. We knew what we were in for. The Mets were not going to sweep the Los Angeles Dodgers. I know probably some of you out there thought that was going to be the case. This is going to be a back and forth series. This is going to be a series that is going to have ebbs and flows. And Jack in the chat says, "Hello, Chris. Not a fun night." No, it was not a fun night. It was not a fun, enjoyable way to start the LCS. But the way I would position it and message it to you all, the New York Mets were not eliminated tonight. We are not signing off here with our last Locked On Mets postcast for 2024. We've got it guaranteed 3 more of these. There's going to be 3 more evenings where you and I are going to get together and we're going to talk about this baseball team. And I can almost guarantee you that at least one of those 3 over the next 3 are going to be wins for the New York Mets. This team has bounced back every single time, and it's a roller coaster ride. It ebbs and flows throughout the course of a series, but it's going to be, I think the vibes are going to be very different if the Mets win tomorrow and they respond in a big way, and they are carrying the momentum going back to Citi Field, and the series is tied at 1, and everyone's gonna be like, "Oh, lost 9-0 game 1. No big deal. Series is tied. We're going back to Citi Field. We've got the advantage." That's how quick things can change. Jack says, saw this good vibe stat on Twitter. The last 3 times a team won an LCS by at least 9 runs: the Phillies game 2 of 2023, the Dodgers game 5 of 2021, and the Red Sox in game 3 of 2021. That team lost the series. Shout out Jack, trying to find the positivity here on a late Sunday evening when we're all not really in a positive mood. But I appreciate the positivity, Jack, as we hope the Mets will be able to rebound tomorrow. And again, they're sending their ace on the mound to do so. So disappointing. And I have it over there, and I didn't get to it. The Hollywood lights. I saw it out there. Oh, bright lights for this team. Did they not show up? Did they panic a little bit? No. It's a good baseball team they faced. Remind yourself, the New York Mets are one of the final 4 teams in all of baseball. The team they're playing won 98 games in the regular season. They've got 3 MVPs in the top of their lineup. I know they're pitching a suspect, and I know that's the place where we think the Mets have an advantage and they can win this series. That's still a really good, well-run organization with a good manager, a deep bench, 3 MVPs at the top of the lineup. It's not going to be easy. The Mets are not going to go into every one of these games and steamroll the Dodgers and then kick their feet up after 4 games and just be waiting for whoever's going to win the American League. That's not how this works. It's going to be a roller coaster. You would much rather, if this team's going to have a stinker, if you were guaranteed before the series began, that the New York Mets are going to have one stinker in the series, you would say, get it out of the way in game 1. Get it out of the way in a game where it's the first game of the series. You're on the road. You're not really supposed to win. They're in front of their home crowd. They're energetic. They're trying to put on a show for their team. It doesn't really upset the apple cart because if you win all your games at home, again, you'd have a 3-2 lead going back to LA. This is the one you'd pick. You would pick this game. And this team has responded to moments like this. And if you don't think they have the ability and they won't respond to something like this, then you haven't been watching this team all year long. We'll just have to wait and see how they take care of business tomorrow, and hopefully they take care of business tomorrow. But that is going to do it for us here on the Locked On Mets postcast. If you want some more thoughts about the Mets dropping game 1 and ultimately a preview of game 2, make sure you are subscribed and locked in to the Locked On Mets podcast with Ryan Finkelstein. I will be back tomorrow, post-game, game 2 of Mets-Dodgers NLCS game 2. And then remember, if you're a Jets fan, I got you covered for the Jets tomorrow night on Monday Night Football against the Bills. So hopefully we have 2 victory editions of the Locked On Mets, of the Locked On Sports New York postcast here tomorrow on the channel. But that is going to do it for us here tonight on the show. A disappointing one for the New York Mets as they drop game 1 of this series, and they do so in rather disappointing fashion, basically a complete no-show for this offense. But the good news, more games are on the horizon, a very quick turnaround for this team. No time to think about it. They're back out at tomorrow with their ace on the mound, Sean Manaea, in game 2, and we will be back to recap it all. Good night, everybody.